Welcome to the Savage Worlds GM podcast. I'm your host, Jared Savage Daddy Gutting. Tonight's episode brought to you by our loyal Patreon subscribers. If you want to join the crew, want to support us, throw us a buck, support what we do, feel free to check us out on patreon.com/Savage Worlds GM podcast, SWGM podcast for short. We're on Twitter and Facebook at SWGM podcast. And check out the YouTube channel, like, subscribe, share, catch the live stream Mondays following this live stream on youtube.com/SWGM podcast, and download, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast, but you can also get it from iTunes.com/Savage Worlds GM podcast. So tonight's topic, fish out of water. We're going to talk about our experiences with having to relearn what we've learned with the new SWADE rules coming out. And here to discuss it, the verbose Scott W., the Savage cheerleader. Fuck you, Scott. Dustin, the Savage Zealot Smith.
So long, and thanks for all the fish.
Dave, the rules maven Scott.
I have nothing that can follow the previous comment.
And Chris, the Savage Mommy Fox.
Hunting and fishing in Savage Worlds.
And then last but not least, if you're watching the live stream, feel free to participate in the chat. We do bring that into the show. So, gentlemen, let's talk about how Savage Worlds, how SWADE owned us. Is what I want to talk about more than anything else. Because it seems every time I'm playing a SWADE game, I'm constantly checking rules that I'm familiar with from Deluxe, just double checking to make sure they haven't changed, and then being surprised by things that have changed that I don't think to check. So I kind of want to share with the audience kind of our experience, grab their experience, as well as, I hate to use the word because it's so much PC culture, but transitioning from Deluxe into SWADE.
Dave, and there's this short little document out there that only ended up being 50-some pages that showed the differences from Deluxe to SWADE.
Like I'll share. I'll throw Dave under the bus since he's so apt to do it to me periodically. Dave expressed shock, horror, and amazement with the new Benny rule about even if you roll a critical fail on a Benny, you're stuck with it. Which is a big shift. That is a big change from Savage Worlds Deluxe cores. You could never do worse on a Benny reroll.
I'd heard people say they didn't like that rule. I had thought it had gone in as a setting rule. It really did kind of hit me direct that, wait a minute, no. Not only did critical failure become a standard, so did this kind of updated version of critical failure that's way worse than it had been in the past. So yeah, it absolutely was a bit of a, whoa, wait a minute. That doesn't, because it doesn't seem to fit. A lot of the tone of the changes they made in SWADE made the game a little more player heavy, a little easier for players to kind of, get out there and do bombastic things and not only be successful, but survive the consequences fairly easily. And yet this critical failure change really kind of goes the other direction. It really gives a, hey, you can do those amazing risky things, but here's this big risk you're taking. Every time you pick that dice up to roll for a Benny, it could actually end up making the roll worse now because of that critical failure. And that's a big swing from where they were before. And that just, it seems a little off with the way the rest of the system seems to have shifted.
Yeah, because I think, well, I mean, Chris probably plays more than I think all of us do. Well, you guys throw online, but there was already that reticence to throw bennies out there, right? Because bennies are hit points. So I wonder, is that causing even more reticence now?
I think this really has to go
hit points.
Because most of the games that Jared and I are part of right now are dead end, where bennies are used very differently. There's no bennies or hit points in that. So because of that, it would be hard for me to gauge whether or not that really shifted any more or less, because I've played predominantly a setting where bennies are not hit points for about 3 years now.
Yeah, man. Chris, anything different for you as far as people throwing bennies?
No, they're using them just as much.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe they don't care.
Yeah, they're using them just as much. So, and I do like that Ruben brought up that if you really want to fix that a little bit, use dumb luck.
Right. Yeah, and bennies are far more powerful now in general.
Yeah, you got more. Yeah, you got a lot more uses for them now than you had before.
I mean, there's the whole narrative aspect. When we were playtesting Dead End, there's actually one point where I would use that to say, okay, we come across a motel or we find like a cache of drugs or something, and Jared was our GM, and he was like, okay, describe it to me. And of course he runs with it and makes it just like murder on the open highway, but still.
Right. Oh, I'll give you what you want. If you go ahead, spend a benny, take narrative control. That doesn't mean it's going to be a good result. It's not an I win button.
No, it's not. And I think that's the point, is like with a good GM, you don't give them an I win button. You give them a rope that slowly tightens as they gently fall deeper into the plot.
Yeah,
So-
you're almost a genie in the lamp when it comes to them spending narrative bennies. Go ahead, Dave. We cut you off twice. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, as far as I'm concerned, I think there's an aspect here where it really emphasizes the idea that the GM is not supposed to be the cheerleader of the players. Yes, you're part and parcel to all the fun that's being had at the table, and you want the actual players to have enjoyed the session, but the PCs, the GM is not responsible for their success or their failure. You're responsible for a facilitation of being able to play the game, having a storyline to interact with, so that the players can have impact on that. And we've seen this big push to more and more of this idea that you're supposed to be the cheerleader of the players, shifted from, instead of being your job to make sure they had fun, to your job to make sure their characters had a good time, their characters win. And it's like, no, that's not what the hobby is really supposed to be about. And I think some of these rule shifts they've made in SWADE, if done properly, reinforce that idea of the GM being kind of neutral. You're there to protect the players' fun, but not the characters. Because things like the narrative control doesn't come with a guarantee of, yes, that actually happens. It's, they can play something and try to add something to the scene, but it still has to be approved by the GM. Like, the rules are very well written and crafted in those places to call out places where it's up to the GM to ultimately decide what happens.
Well, I'll tell you another one that threw me for a loop was the minimum strength. So now if you don't have the minimum strength for the weapon, you're rolling your weapons, or you're rolling your strength die at a max. So if the thing does strength plus D8 and you only have a D6 and it requires a minimum strength of D8, then you're rolling two D6s instead of a D6 and D8, right? Or I have that wrong.
You have it right, except that it's not a SWADE change.
Yeah.
That's not new. It's just, that's part of Deluxe that most people weren't using.
Right.
Yeah, true.
Oh.
I forgot all about that. I didn't even remember that.
Like, if you picked up a D8 weapon, strength plus a D8, you only had a D6 strength, you did 2D6 damage. And that's been the way it's supposed to work for quite some time now. That might go back before Deluxe. I'd have to go back and double check the books themselves to see the older version. But I'm fairly certain that goes back almost to the very beginning.
Yeah.
It has been like that since the very beginning, Dave. I remember. I also know that nobody really followed that rule, or if they did, they would sometimes apply a -2. And sometimes you would get GMs that would say, you can't use that because it's outside of your strength limitation.
Yeah, because that's how physics works.
Yeah.
You just can't even try to pick it up.
No, that fucking axe is too heavy, bro.
Yeah, you got a D6. That's a D8. That's Thor's hammer to you. You can't.
I was about to say the exact same thing. That's Thor's hammer. You can't touch that. You're not Thor.
These fucking shitbag GMs. Jesus Christ.
Well, I do know that, like, in Savage Rifts, if an armor had a strength minimum, you would have a -2 to your trait rolls. It would kind of apply like like encumbrance. I believe that's right.
Well, and I like some of the additions even to the hindrances now, where like obese specifically says it's difficult for you to find the gear. And there's a racial trait now that you can take for being big, not just size, but actually big as the racial trait that makes it so that you have a hard time finding gear, and you take a penalty if you're using gear that wasn't designed for you. And I like that they've added in a few little tweaks like that to kind of round out some spots where they said, well, this is how it works, and then never gave us any definition. So it was so different from table to table. Now there's more consistency for that.
So let me ask this question of everybody here in the podcast. What is the one thing in SWADE that you've encountered that has been changed? That was a muscle memory thing from Deluxe, where you'd been running Deluxe Savage Worlds for so long that you didn't even think twice about it. It was ingrained in you. You knew the rule. You never had to look it up. And I'll start that conversation by saying the aim maneuver going bye-bye. And then now it being an edge.
Yeah.
That still bumps me. That's an example of kind of what we're talking about tonight, where we have mastered that system as Deluxe for as long as it was out. And now because we're switching to SWADE, we're having to go, oh, wait. Right. There's no more aim maneuver.
Yeah.
What is your...
I think I had a pretty good grasp on grapple, and now that it's been changed a little bit, I'm having to look it up. And Ruben kind of brought it up, but the entangle and the bound mechanics, I still, for some reason, I'm having to look those up. The other distracted and vulnerable, I'm great with those. I'm good with those, but I still am having to look up entangled and bound, and I'm still having to look up just to reread grapple, because it's just different enough that it still throws me.
There's some edges that I had down pat that they changed. Marksman's changed, Elan's changed, Charismatic has changed, and those were some of my go-to depending on my character build. And now I'm playing, and the GM, which is usually like Jared or Dave, has to remind me that's not how that edge works anymore. You can't just
for example, give us an example of how it worked in Deluxe and how it works now.
So we no longer have charisma, and if some of you have ever played with me, you know I'm quite fond of the face characters. And instead of getting a +2 to persuasion, if you take the charismatic edge, what happens now is you just get a free reroll. Well, one of the things I also like to do, since persuasion is also built off of spirit, is I like to bump up my spirit pretty high and pick up Elan. So now it's at this point where if you botch the persuasion roll with charismatic, you just get a free reroll. And I'm always throwing out those chips for Elan because it's not registering in my head. There's no +2 to that.
Yeah.
I mean, between that and, dramatic task, which I always go back to the way we used to do dramatic tasks now. And I'm like, no, that's not how we do it. This is more of a bell curve.
Yeah, I was going to say dramatic task is definitely the one for me. That's muscle memory that was hard fought and won. And all of a sudden, not only did they change dramatic tasks, but then they added this whole additional mechanic for running a dramatic task for the whole party at one time.
Yeah.
So now you've got not only a new set of rules where the party has to kind of decide, are they going for, which set of rounds they're going to shoot for. And that can be a decision that you're making as the GM based on the situation. It could also be a situation you put in the player's hands where you go, well, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to be more thorough, or are you trying to be fast? And things like that. So there's the interesting aspect of that change to dramatic task. And then you flip that with, and now if there's more than one participant, it just adds multiple sets of required successes and additional people rolling. Though I will say I have gotten to a point now where when running a dramatic task under the current rules, I turn up one card per round, and that's everyone's card, rather than going, so we have 4 participants and here's 4 cards from the deck. I find it's fair to the players because they don't run, for each additional person, you're not running that extra chance of getting a club out of the deck because there's far more clubs than there are jokers. So people don't tend to complain that they're not getting as many chances as the joker because they're also not getting 2, 3, 4 times as many chances at freaking another club, which is just going to make that round that much more difficult.
All right, Scott.
I don't play that often, so yeah, I don't know. I think the dramatic tasks were the really biggest change because I love running dramatic tasks, and yeah, it's a big shift for how I do them. So,
not chases?
No, I still don't use their chases. It's still bullshit. So,
and I haven't run a chase in SWADE yet. I just haven't had the opportunity.
I'm not gonna. I'm going to say that I have a difficult time understanding and implementing the chase mechanics. So I normally fall back on something else like either dramatic tasks or a mass battle. And in all honesty, I really don't understand why we don't run a chase like a mass battle,
Yeah, which kind of, I heard you on the other, which podcast that
Wild
was?
Die.
The Wild Die.
Yeah, that was a really good conversation about just some of the mechanical shifts and things and just how,
I felt like it worked too because like I even went through with the guys. You guys can go back to the Wild Eye podcast and check it out. And we did this whole scenario where it was like you had old gangsters in a Cadillac and young gangsters in a Viper, and I literally talked about how it would break down, and it just made so much more sense. And I'm looking at like the chase rules that we have in SWADE, and we went through like 3 or 4 incarnations, and the people at PEG who are designing this, they're trying. They're doing the best they can. I'm trying to be nice here.
That's predictable. They're going with what they think makes sense mechanically with the system, but now they're adding like tokens and a fucking racetrack of cards, and they're on a swing pendulum of
it's information overload.
It really is.
Hold on, I'm going to say this.
I think they're trying to please too many people at one time.
They were.
And this isn't defending PEG though, but the card mechanic was in the original version of
it's not the card mechanic, but no, not the way it's done in SWADE. The way it's done in SWADE is those cards and tokens are utilized as a racetrack mechanic for fucking range and everything. So that's more bullshit you got to throw on the table on top of your dolls and your bennies and your fucking dice and everything else. That's okay. I have a feeling that there's a simple solution coming to a swag product near you.
No. Man, I'd love to preview that one.
Oh, yeah. That's easy. Oh shit, it's PEG! It's PEG!
And we are shut down.
Scott, Clint Black would like to have a word with you.
They canceled my fucking license. They canceled Chris's license. They canceled Jared's
license. Revoking the license.
Yeah, don't get my license revoked, damn it.
I won't. Disavow.
Hey, what you do at your table has nothing to do with your license. Only what you put in your printed products.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's very true.
True statement.
Yeah.
Keep talking shit about Pinnacle. Wait, we're still live?
Moving on, because we actually do want to keep our jobs.
Yeah.
I work for the government.
This is someone's job?
I work for the government. You guys are paying for this right now.
No, Pinnacle's that powerful, man. They're that powerful. They will get you doxxed. Don't believe otherwise. No, and here's something too. Here's the other thing too. Not to hammer the chase rules too much, but you can just see in the original release. I don't think it's something Shane's ever been happy with. He's trying to find this thing with chase rules, and it's his personal demon. It's something he's trying to work out. He keeps trying to work out. So, this will be better. No, people don't like it because this doesn't make sense.
It's the monkey on his back.
That is absolutely his uniform.
His heel.
Yeah.
It's the thing
I
he's
was-
gonna constantly chase.
I was gonna say the white whale. It's
Yes,
like
it's his white whale.
It's all of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just. But I,
It's Sisyphean task is what it is.
Yes.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
No matter how many times he rolls that boulder to the top of the mountain and releases a finished version of the chase rules, someone out there is going to give him shit for it.
I'll send you
It's
guys.
absolutely his Sisyphean task.
I'll send you guys the PDF.
So
But,
what else in SWADE is kind of throwing anybody for a
And somebody mentioned it.
Powers.
Powers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
The
I'm having a
entire
look at
power system, all the changes, the limitations, the power modifiers, the changes to the powers themselves, where it's like, oh, here's this power, see this other power. I'm like, the fuck?
But I'm okay with something like I think Bolt is quicker and easier now.
Yeah, but it does fuck you up, right? Because I still
It
think
does.
in my head, like, oh yeah, why don't you just hit that? Oh wait.
Yeah,
you can add heavy damage to it now, so that's a plus.
And I understand, but I didn't know the old Bolt rules. I could never keep them straight, and then they updated it, and it does make it easier. But I've printed up the power cards. I know I'm getting them eventually,
Motherfucker.
but I printed up multiple copies of it, just cut them out and put them into card sleeves, and that's helped because the players can have them, I can have one.
Yeah.
So Ruben actually hit something really interesting here with the powers specifically, is that his players are complaining that everything has a range of smarts, and I absolutely completely agree. This is one of those spots I think that they completely dropped the ball on this. Is they had an opportunity to come back and readdress the entire power system. And the power system before was solid. Do not get me wrong. It had its flaws, but it was pretty freaking solid. In this rewrite, why did no one think to say, or spirit, or, base it on the arcane skill die? Your range is your arcane skill die instead of your character's smarts. Because here's the thing. If my character's a spirit-heavy shaman, why does he suddenly have to have a high smarts die just to have a longer range on his spells? Especially if it takes away from the character being this, backwoods country bumpkin type who just happens to have a lot of willpower.
Yeah.
It just
I'm surprised they went that route because, like, even the thing I wrote, ranges are definitive based on essentially pseudo physics. Other effects are determined by your what would be smarts or spirit or a few other statistics, right? Because it makes more sense that some spells require you to put your force of power into it. Others require you to be intelligent about picking a number of targets and how you perceive shit. I really am kind of surprised they didn't go a different route and you made range a hard number.
well, and it's the same complaint I had here a few weeks ago when I said I was shocked at the fact that basically the arcane backgrounds are all magic with a different word or weird science. We really don't have that, range of different mechanically different arcane backgrounds that we had previously with the way they rewrote it. So I think there's a few things where maybe I don't want to say oversimplified, but over homogenized. They tried to look for the general a little too often and made it too general.
Well, do you think that was a design choice to keep it more simple with all the changes they made to shorting powers and spending additional power points for effects and everything else they changed about the system? I think maybe they did that to avoid, vapor lock overload.
I don't think they tried to consider a simple approach for this. I think it's just an oversight.
There are some things about powers that I really do like. I love the fact that they introduce modifiers and limitations because now you can actually get the power you want.
On some of them, I have a player in my Deadlands game who has shape change, and just freaking hates the fact that it's only good for 5 rounds. That's 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And then you just have to keep spending power points, and there's nothing that extends that to minutes, hours. and she wants to be that character who can stay in bear form and go scouting and things like that. And that's, you really, I mean, you can't, as written, you can't do that. That's maybe something that with what Art says that I need to look at, maybe up the PowerPoint cost and give them X amount of time, but it's going to cost you.
So, Chris, remind me later. I will send you a new arcane background I wrote that I'm actually running in my Tuesday night group.
Okay.
It handles the same exact thing, but the reverse is the character's a summoner, and he wanted to be able to like raise creatures and just keep like an unseen servant just constantly with him. He wanted to summon up like a familiar type creature and just keep that on his shoulder all the time. And he wanted them to specifically be things he had summoned, not a familiar following things like the
okay. That's great, because my other Indian shaman in the exact same game wants to do that, and so he wanted summon ally power, which if you look in the Deadlands core, it's not a shaman power. But I'm like, go ahead and take it. Yeah. Because with SWADE now, I'm like, you can look at SWADE and you can go ahead and take it. So I let him take summon ally, and I said, but it had to be an ally that was something like a spirit animal or something that was shamanistic. You're an Indian shaman, so you need to do something shamanistic. And he's like, well, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to like be able to summon like a wolf or a mountain lion or something. I'm like, yeah, just take it.
Yeah, I'll explain the mechanic offline.
Okay.
And absolutely yours to play with, so long as you don't publicly share it. But
nope.
At least until such a time as that product comes out from Atomic Ninja.
Okay. I won't be sharing. You hear that? You hear that? Side, no sharing.
I share shit. I don't need shit. I'm gonna send you the thing right now.
No, I was talking to my buddy who's in.
Okay, so the topic tonight is what has
Jared.
changed in SWADE that's throwing you for a loop. Not what's bad about it, what we don't like about it. Where we missed the ball.
Okay, how about this?
I like the power system.
Yeah.
It's very different, and so I have to look those powers up.
Yeah.
Every single time now.
And there might be better ways of doing things.
Fucking
just saying. Every fucking game is like that. I look at the game I wrote and I'm like, man, I really shouldn't have done that. Fuck. Fuck. But I'm not making an advanced version. Everyone can eat a dick. Yeah, so I don't know. But I think there's a lot of with what we talked about in the Discord server, right? Is like there's a lot of little things, it seems like, that are really just, I don't know, out there. It seems weird.
Guide us, Jared. Guide us.
Yeah.
Well, I have to keep remembering that the GMs now get bennies too when they draw a Joker.
Oh, yeah, that is a weird one. That fucks me up.
Oh, I'm all over that because I love that.
You motherfucker.
Yeah, but I mean,
I'm like, oh, look what I got. I got a Joker.
Here's the thing, like, I might get all excited about it, especially right now because Fantasy Grounds tells me and it deals it automatically to the GM. But I still don't freaking use them. But at the end of the night, I still have all my GM bennies sitting there that I haven't used.
Well, bad GM, Dave.
Yeah, I know.
Bad GM. Now, that's the one thing that throws me. The thing too that some of the things that were my go-to setting rules for a lot of things are now just part of core. Through me, like Blood and Guts now being part of core makes complete sense. You should be able to spend bennies to reroll damage.
Yeah,
you always should have been able to,
right? I mean, why not be able to? If you want to spend a benny, reroll anything you fucking want. Who cares?
Right.
Well, and then the change to No Mercy that went with that.
Yeah.
Now if you take No Mercy, you get a bonus to your damage roll on a benny.
Yeah, it's a bonus damage Alon now, basically.
Right. Yeah. Murder Hoboville. I love it.
I don't know. There's also like the little stuff again, like just the addition of old setting rules as part of core with Joker's Wild being standard. Yeah, that's standard in most of my more cinematic pulpy games, but including that in Dead End, that was different. Like, oh, here's this game. It's about bitter trial and error and characters, suffering. And oh, by the way, when a Joker is drawn, woohoo! everybody gets a penny. Wait a minute, what?
We just released, I don't know if anybody's been paying attention, but we just released the design diary for Dead End, and we showcased Overwhelmed. And that's just Dave having to compensate with some of the changes. It's like, oh my gosh.
Let's see. Apart from the GM game, Benny, I think the other thing too that threw me for. I mean, I've never really been comfortable with powers as a GM. I usually don't use them. That's not the type of games and genre and settings that I play. So I've kind of glossed over the powers. Oh, that's interesting. Modifiers. Yeah. Artificer. Okay, whatever. Dynamic backlash. Okay, yeah, I get it. I would say that this is the one thing that I keep seeing players struggle with. Is thinking that wound cap is now a core rule, and it's not.
Yeah.
Where it's, oh no, well, you can only ever take 4 wounds. No. That is a setting rule. That is not core rules. We're not using that setting rule. So you just took 8 wounds, asshole. Soak that shit.
Such a dick. Oh, you rolled a 1 on your vigor roll. Oh, it's too bad.
It is called Savage Worlds, right?
That's a true statement. Yeah. I think the amount of ammunition for certain games expended by the rate of fire rates for firearms is also catching me because I generally run games that have firearms, and sometimes a lot of scenarios I need you to keep some counting of what you're going through for special purposes, and yeah, it's like, shit. What's your ROF again? Because those ROFs also changed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rate of fire change, the amount of ammo that's expended when you actually pull that trigger on Giggle Switch.
Yep.
And there's another one. Double tap is now an edge.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah. Yep.
And to be fair, I get it to a certain extent. Like, that's actually something that, you train a little bit to be able to do effectively and keep both rounds on target.
Yeah, if you've never tried to actual marksmanship for rapid fire, it's pretty fucking difficult.
Yeah, you hand a gun to the uninitiated and tell him to just pull the trigger twice. That second round is going straight up in the air.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things we actually have to shoot when we do competitions, and it's single-handed, 50 yards, rapid fire. You got 10 seconds, dump them rounds, right? And it's 10 rounds in 10 seconds. So, and you need to stay on the black at 50 yards. So yes, it's incredibly difficult fucking skill.
Yeah, like I said, I can understand it being at the same time. It's definitely like people are used to just being able to do that for free.
Yeah, sure, right? Because you get that free bonus, and because most people don't count rounds, so it's like, woo! I double tap 900 rounds.
Not only is it that most people aren't counting rounds, but think back to the deluxe era, and Richard Woolcock actually put out an entire book about here's all the extra stuff I added to the game with edges to let you do special stuff with a gun or a bow.
Yeah.
He did an entire supplement for that because, quite honestly, in the previous version of the game, Marksman was it. Once you bought Marksman, you had all the ranged combat edges in the game. They've really changed that up now.
They really have.
Kid, double tap. So much of this stuff became edges so that you now have to specialize a character in ranged combat.
Yeah, I think I don't have no one has the book in front of them. I don't have the PDF in front of them. Do you have it?
I've got the PDF.
Is double tap still firearms only? Because I would definitely allow someone to use a bow on that.
It says shooting. Used with weapons that have a rate of fire of 1 and can fire 2 shots without needing to manually reload.
See, I would still allow someone to use a bow just because there are archers who are quite prolific. And if you're going to burn an edge, why not?
I think it's that restriction was specifically added just to keep it from being used with archery, but
fucking mild.
Again, like Art said earlier in the chat, you start at the rules and then modify them to fit your game.
Yeah,
sure.
I don't see why double tap can only be used with weapons that have a rate of fire of 1 and can fire 2 shots without needing a manual reload.
Self-loading is all it is.
A bow doesn't have a clip.
Yeah.
Or magazine.
The thing of it is you hold one in the finger, Scott, I know what you're talking about because I've seen people do it, and they're like, they clip it like that, like they're chopsticks or something, and it's.
Listen, every motherfucker out there is not Legolas. All right, can we fucking stop that shit?
They're not Legolas, but they're friggin' human beings that can do this. I've seen them do it.
Yeah, and you're burning an edge for it, so you know.
Take the edge twice.
It's cool as shit when they do it.
Yeah.
But it's doable.
No, just take the eggs once and fire 2 arrows in a round, right? I mean, it's
Jalen, but we're not talking about verisimilitude of recreating everything that you can actually do in real life in the game, are we?
No, God, you can't because it stops as soon as you start grappling. It does.
See, and now there's another one I kind of wish they had looked at a little more closely is grappling, because the number one thing that I get players declaring their action to do that Savage Worlds just doesn't have a proper rule for is a tackle. Just a straight up, I charge the guy, drop my shoulder, and tackle him to the ground.
It's push.
That idea
Push,
well, it's a push and a grapple in one move.
You don't got to
I kind of understand what you're saying, Dave. Just a tackle maneuver.
Yeah. It's not a push because they're not just knocking you over, and it's not a grapple because they also want to knock you over all in the same maneuver.
So you're saying a tackle for you, what you're envisioning is I charge you, I hit you in the midsection, but I'm also grabbing your fucking legs, pulling you off your feet, and then holding you in like a fucking Boston crab
to drag you to the ground. This is the traditional NFL drive the shoulder in, wrap the arms around, and take you to the ground.
But that's just a push, you doing damage. The grappling part would be I'm trying to hold you there in a wrestling maneuver. That would be multi-action. That's easy to solve.
It's a double leg takedown.
Yeah, that's all it is.
And then move to position.
Yeah,
and even if you do it in the real world, it looks fluid, but in all honesty, there are steps. Like you have to.
Oh, and again, while I get that in reality that is a multi-part thing, and in Savage Worlds it would end up being a multi-action, it just feels wrong at the table to have a player just declare a tackle and telling them, okay, well, that suffers a multi-action penalty because you're technically trying to achieve two separate things.
I agree with you, Dave.
Yeah, I don't know.
Why not just making an athletics agility trick?
Yeah, I mean, it's just that easy.
Well, again, now you said making an athletics agility trick that also grants them, all the benefits of grapple and the benefits.
It's a test.
But no, it's not. It's not true. This
is a test.
This is where the new vulnerability and shit comes into play. That's all this is. I mean,
wouldn't that just be using athletics as a test?
You could probably do it that way.
Okay. Yes, I absolutely can. I am creative enough as a GM to solve this problem.
It doesn't sound like it.
By allowing them to spend a raise on the push roll to also grapple. I've done it several other ways. What I'm saying is the rules don't give a method that is consistent for a player to declare a single action as a tackle and take them to the ground where they are prone and grappled. This is a request I have from the player to do these two things.
That's you already said it. It's two fucking things.
Actions.
So tell the retard it's two fucking things.
Yeah, you tell them no.
Right? Be like, count. Tackle.
It's a multi-action. You can take up to 3. Feel fucking free.
Mabel, it's a fucking tackle and it's a pin.
Listen, I've seen actual matches where the guy will shoot in on a double leg and the other opponent will just roll with it and reverse the position. It really is a multi-action because you have to do two things.
Yeah, I wrestled as a kid, and wrestling's fucking hard.
Yes, it is.
The last thing you want to do is when you start fucking with someone and he tells you he wrestles, that should be the end of your cue to stop being a drunk douchebag. Because what happens next is not going to be fun.
I'm going to make you my Greco-Roman bitch.
You're going to lay on the ground until you get so fucking mad you piss yourself.
So here's on the topic of athletics. So let me ask this question. Do you guys find yourselves calling for agility rolls and then correcting yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah. Make an agility athletics roll.
Why?
Because I struggle with the English language, and I do that when I
No, but
speak in regular.
I'm saying you can still use.
You're fucking ESL.
Too honest.
Because I drink adult beverages when I game.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, Senor Gamer, please give me the agility. How you say agility athletics?
Oh.
So let me ask this question: Is there anything in core rules now that says you can't call for an agility roll? That it has to be an athletics roll?
Ooh, tackling.
You love
I'm so sorry.
Doesn't the pick up a weapon that's in a difficult location, isn't that specifically now an athletics check? I think there are some things that used to be agility rolls and all became athletics checks. Naming them all off would be difficult.
Like let's take the one of the really common ones. You're running across the rope bridge and the plank gives out. You don't notice it giving out. You're falling. Give me an agility roll at a -2 or a -1 or no negative to grab hold of something and keep yourself from falling.
Yeah, sure.
Is that really athletics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is that running, jumping?
I would probably.
Or is that really pure 100% reactionary agility?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think it's whatever I ask for in the moment that I happen to remember.
Right, but what I'm asking, here's the question I'm posing. Do you guys find yourself second guessing yourselves when you're calling for an agility roll?
well, I guess you could.
And
So
then
say you're doing
defaulting to athletics.
if you're doing a dungeon crawl and the 10-foot pit opens up underneath you, what's the saving throw? Right? Is it agility or is it athletics? I guess it depends on what kind of character you're playing. Maybe, right? Like maybe you're the thieving type. I might say you're the
Right.
nimble acrobat, so give me an athletics. But
Yeah, if you've got like a parkour edge and you're a parkour guy, then yeah, sure, make an athletics.
I don't know,
But
man. Maybe.
here's the other thing too. Does anybody still call for climbing rolls? Because the core rules say you can do that.
Man, no one ever called for climbing rolls. Super bad GMs.
The fact
The
that
worst
people
one
would,
called for a climbing roll for a fucking ladder.
I was just gonna say that. I'm gonna climb on top of my roof. Give me a climbing roll to get up your ladder for the first 3 rungs.
I was playing in a zombie game. It wasn't an Atomic Ninja. It was like a different game, and I invested in climbing. Just because I was just going to climb on whatever it was. As soon as the horde showed up, I just climbed.
Did you say horde or whore?
Horde.
Same thing, same difference.
Horde act.
So I mean,
No, but I'm just wondering if we're defaulting more to the new core skills as a kind of replacement for actual attribute rolls when they would count.
I don't think I am.
When they make sense, like give me a common knowledge roll instead of a smarts roll.
so one
Because
of the
smarts used to be common knowledge.
That I'm doing.
One of the things I know Shane had said in an early interview was this idea of skills were active actions and traits were reactive responses.
Cool.
And the rules don't always follow that mold. Like there's a few spots where they still have you using a skill in a reactive manner. But honestly, 90% of the time, that rule really can just walk you through most of the different uses. Is if it's reactive, it's a trait. If it's active, it's a skill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm not saying that you couldn't use an athletics roll for I'm falling, but
yeah.
Well, it's like when you come to the difference between persuasion and perform. Like I specifically will buy points and perform, even though I have no intention of performing.
Performing
To be able to lie, because a lie, I believe, if the skill addition is here, it's like it's a perform skill if you're going to lie to somebody.
Wait.
it depends.
Yeah.
It depends on your interpretation of the skill. If you're saying persuasion is your ability to convince somebody of something,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
then
Well,
telling
it's
them a good lie is a persuasion skill.
It's almost like that might be a definition of persuasion as a word.
Yeah, it would.
if you're
and it
if you're
comes down,
trying to give a rousing speech,
Yeah.
if you're trying to give an inaugural, if you're trying to deliver Lincoln's Gettysburg Address,
Yeah.
that's a perform. That's an oration. That's not. It can still have the effect of a persuasion, though.
in that vein, I will say one of the ones I find myself calling for and having to correct is fucking Streetwise.
Yep.
Oh, really? Oh, shit.
Oh, yeah. The whole carouse in the bar and find something out.
Sure, yeah.
You know, that whole ability to work the contacts and get the information from, you know, street punks and low lives and whatnot.
Yeah.
That's all persuasion now. And I mean, I'm not saying that's wrong. Honestly, it always should have been. Streetwise should have been trying to figure out how to contact them or who to contact, whereas persuasion should have been getting the information from them. But I have found myself having to correct myself because I'll say, hey, give me a street. Oh, wait, no, you can't.
Damn.
Networking.
And the worst part is, at least 2 of my players are brand new. They didn't play in Deluxe. So when I'm calling for these things, they don't even know what it is. It's not on the sheet anymore. There's no streetwise anywhere on that sheet. So, I call for a rule that doesn't exist.
That's rough. Damn.
Okay, can we talk about disarm? How does disarm work now that you can do like 3 actions?
Let's talk about that.
Which side are you asking? Like, mechanically, how do you end up in a disarm? Or
I'm talking
the response to a disarm is automatically I get to pick the weapon up
for free.
Yeah, the fact that you actually go out and you target the person's arm to knock the weapon out of their hand. Their turn comes up, they just pick it up.
So they still have to make a roll to pick it up.
Okay.
And while it's free to ready up to 2 items per round, if you disarm them, that's considered a difficult location. They have to succeed at the roll to be able to actually pick it back up from the ground. So,
Okay.
I mean, there's some benefit there, but let's be honest. When was the last time anyone was disarmed in your game?
Yeah, I've never seen it.
I have.
I would do it all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. I've never seen players want to do it for some reason.
I've seen it in my games before, but it's usually because like we're trying to take the person alive just to get information.
What is that like? That must be pretty cool when you have players follow a plot and not want to just fucking murder rape everything that's in front of them.
Well,
I'll
no,
tell you what's cool, and I'm going to share this because I see it happen over and over and over again in our dead end playtest. Is player characters, the players embracing the suck and being excited about it. Like, oh my God, we're all going to die tonight. We're going to get a TPK. We're all going to be poisoned. This is awesome. And then just completely leaning into it.
Nice.
And as the new guy, as the guy that figures out a method of how to keep them alive, like, I don't know, picking up a bunch of med kits or maybe just not eating the food that the crazy lady we know is poisoning us.
Oh, yeah. Well, the players know it. And they don't care. They're like, yeah, we don't care about surviving. This is a perfect end to our characters because we have fucked up. We deserve to die at this dinner table. And nobody, oh, you killed my character, you son of a bitch. It's like, you killed my character, you son of a bitch. That was awesome.
You magnificent bastard.
I'll say this. Like, the whole... Here's what's throwing me is running is no longer an action.
Yeah, the run has always just been weird. Another thing I've never really seen people do, to be honest with you.
We've run all the time. I think
part of it is just part of the movement. Make a roll, declare it. It's not even. It's not an action. There's no multi-action penalty for it.
Yeah, I mean,
well, there's not a multi-action penalty, but there's still that like on the run penalty. Which is the same penalty as a multi-action penalty.
Yeah, if you're trying to,
it is too, and unless you've got steady hands, lets you ignore that penalty. So,
how do you guys feel about the multi-action cap, the action cap?
That doesn't bother me at all because people got
great.
Stupid with it.
Yeah, I think it's great. Yeah. I think it makes things much quicker, much simpler. You can do 3 actions. You're a -4. Boom, done.
Right. Yeah.
I have players who never took multiple actions before, who are taking them now because it's codified as to how many they can take.
Nice.
And that -4 doesn't sound so bad. They know that if they take the maximum number of stuff, it's only going to be the -4. And they start looking at the ways they can stack in, my opponent is distracted and I can wild attack. And they start stacking together their ability to get past those -4s and start declaring them all the time.
Yeah.
Do you guys have have any issue with making characters declare multi-actions?
Yes. Getting players to understand the whole chain of declare and act.
Then act.
Yeah, the whole, you can't declare that I run over to him and attack. Yeah. Oh, look, my attack was successful. I push him to the ground and stomp his head.
Yeah. No.
Next turn, you didn't pay the multi-action penalty on the first action to be able to do additional action.
Yeah. That's like that week 1 day one of Savage Worlds from back in the day, Yeah.
Yep, you must declare up front. Yeah, and I'm a lot of my players are now they'll start to say that, like, oh, well, now can I do? Oh no, I had to say that up front, didn't I?
Oh, good.
You did, and so they're getting more used to that.
Try it on grapple. Like, listen to a player announce. Okay,
Jared, I just want to tackle somebody. Jesus Christ!
I'm gonna grapple, and then stab him.
Hey, what skill would I use to oppose something like, say, a tackle? Is it agility or is it fucking athletics?
It's definitely actually smart. You guys, it's a notice roll. You got to see it coming.
That's right.
Yeah, you got to pick up your defender. Make a notice roll.
First time I ask you to make the notice roll to see if you see it coming.
Oh man, Dave's like, fuck all of you.
I love you, beautiful bastard. No, so let's talk about the grapple thing now, because now you've got this whole idea of, because there's multiple levels of the target being grappled, you legitimately can end up with a declaration of grapple, and grapple. Or, I've got him grappled from last round. I'm going to go damage. All of which are grapple checks to see if it succeeds. It is absolutely an interesting time as far as that's concerned at the table. And we had a major fight in Dead End here. I don't know, it's been a month or more ago now, where that was what it turned into. Like, it was a grapple fest over a knife that was being fought over. They were
shit!
Get a hold of a switchblade, and it was
tense.
It was the most visceral, nasty combat we have ever had at the table in 4 years of running that setting.
Was it between two players or two characters?
It was between a player character and a wild card.
That's cool. Wow. Shit.
No, he wasn't even a wild card, I don't believe.
He was.
Okay.
You granted him some extra bennies and whatnot.
Yeah, but I mean, it was movie scene tense.
That's cool. Good.
So I'm like, wow, I'm really impressed, because then it was like, well, wait a minute. Nope. We're going to go for the second grapple on this one, because if I don't succeed on the first one, I need a second attempt. And if I do succeed, but only succeed with a success, I'm going to make the second one to get a raise, to bump it up.
Yeah, sure.
Take them from vulnerable or entangled to bound. So, yeah, and there's all this. Now I need to resist it. It was super tense. Yeah. And it ended up with basically the player character winning and basically slicing the guy's thermal artery.
That's legit.
Yeah, they both had multiple wounds by the end of that one too.
Oh shit! Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it was a brutal fight.
Nice. What were the rest of the characters doing? Just standing around watching?
They weren't anywhere nearby. They didn't even see.
They were in a circle going fight. Right,
yeah.
It was dead silent. It was dead quiet at the table.
That's cool, man. Nice.
To be fair, in this case, the party had split and was in other locations. In another situation where we had a grapple fight of equal quality, the other player characters were in a circle chanting fight, because it was a contest between like a professional boxer and somebody else.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, and oh gosh, like, so there was this running gag that one of our playtesters, or one of our group's members, his character, who was the professional fighter, kept punching my character in the face by accident.
or hitting him with a frying pan or whatever. Yeah.
Or pushing him out of the RV. In fact, like my character was a deranged lunatic cult leader, and I declared his character the Angel of Death.
Damn.
It was great.
So let me ask this, since we've gotten off on a tangent here slightly. Let me ask this.
Who, us?
So dealing with brand new players, because again, I'm bringing 2 new people into Savage Worlds. How do you deal with teaching them that Savage Worlds can happen, but to not be scared of it? Because we ran the first fight in the adventure I'm running. They're on the road. They get ambushed. They completely spot the ambush coming. So the whole party starts on hold. They all interrupt the action. The archers take like 2 actions each and just drop all the attackers before the attackers can get within range. So they ride into town. They're all full of themselves. They absolutely know what they're doing. And then we turn around and they get ambushed a second time on the way out of town. And this time, opening round of combat, the archers miss on the opening salvo. And the enemy hits one of the player characters for 5 wounds.
Oh, God.
And they literally watch this go. and they soak all but 2 of them, the whole 9 yards. But it suddenly I watched the whole demeanor of the group shift, and now everyone was taking single actions. Was staying as far away from the combat as they could keep their character and still be effective. Like all of a sudden, they were scared as fuck of the dice, and I don't necessarily know where that happy medium is to teach them that hey, Savage Worlds can happen, but it doesn't happen so often. You need to be afraid to play the game.
That's a good question. I don't know. How do you deal with it in any other role-playing game about characters not succeeding? I think you just have to tell them, hey, see those bennies? That's why it's important to earn them.
Yeah, well, I think for Savage Worlds, like it always has been, is that D&D, your 10th level character is not going to normally be killed with 1 shot. Savage Worlds, that's a very real possibility. And yeah, I think it's just encouraging, like we've talked about before, encouraging them to do still the bombastic shit with those Benny leads, and try to still eke it out of them and make them understand that, dropping with all those wounds isn't the end of things, right? It's still not a big deal.
Yeah,
it's not an auto dead.
Yeah.
Well, I would encourage them. I would encourage them that they can I would encourage them they can make Savage Worlds happen.
Right. Yeah.
And say, hey, listen, the bennies that you have allow you to make Savage Worlds happen and wild dice swings happen in your favor.
Yeah, that might be the most.
While they go against you.
Right. That might be the most dangerous place you're in right now with your players, is that now they do believe bennies are hit points.
Right. And that worries me too, in that they did absolutely see this character burn a couple of bennies for soak rolls because failed the first one.
Yeah.
And had to make that secondary soak roll to try to soak it up. But then at the end of the combat, they ended the combat with no one injured because someone had a healing spell.
Okay. Yeah.
So, at this point, the party's lost nothing really other than a few bennies and a few power points that are legitimately going to come back before the players interact with anything because they've got like a long walk in the wilderness ahead of them. So they're not going to interact with anything until their power points are come back. This combat cost the party nothing. It really should have been more of a quick encounter, just real quick to show them, hey, you've been assaulted on the road. But now instead, it's completely shaken their confidence.
That's actually good, though, right? Their characters are new novices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think you have some pretty good narrative opportunities, honestly, with that. Take the town to fuck with them. Let someone hear about it, right?
Oh, yeah.
I say this as a GM, if I had new players at the table and one of my NPCs rolled god awful damage, like 48, and they're just calculating the wounds and going, oh my God. Okay, I know this looks scary. Don't worry about it because you can make this happen too on your turn. And right now you got the bennies to soak it.
I just Benny and be like, it didn't happen. I use my narrative Benny control.
It doesn't work that way, damn it.
I would just tell them your first instinct is going to be to withdraw and become more cautious because you just got your nose bloodied.
Yeah.
That's the biggest mistake you can make.
Yeah.
Do not become overly cautious just because of one dice roll.
Yep.
Get in there.
Yeah,
Start
it's like
swinging.
my players have the cautious hindrance.
Well, so that might be another way too. Like I said, with the narrative control, is you seize that up to them and give all their fucking characters. They keep doing it. Give them all the cautious hindrance and make them play that shit out, and then they'll want to get rid of it, right?
Yep. All right, so we're coming up on the end of ish. We have anything else in the chat that we want to address that we haven't?
No.
Just a moment. Fuck you, Art. Fucking love our fans, but fuck you, Art.
Throw a bit and tackle him. Absolutely.
I fucking love it.
Uh,
Everybody's talking about tackling.
Jesus Christ.
What?
So, Dave, I'd like to see you go ahead and write up a tackle rule. Send it to me. Test it.
It's a multi-action penalty. It's a push followed.
Dustin, shh, Dustin, shh.
Yeah, I need a new complicated mechanic for tackle.
Yeah.
Oh no! Just keep it simple, soldier.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll go ahead and close it down. So until next time, this is Jared Savage Daddy Gunning for Chris, Dave, Dustin, and Scott saying keep rolling and stay savage.